Chapter 17. I decided in lieu of going over the main topics covered in the chapter to really hone in on a very important topic that wasn't fleshed out much in your book. I think the reason is your book is a how-to guide and it sort of assumes that you're already well grounded in certain topics, one being a SWOT analysis. I think that SWOTs are so useful, I'd like to go into it in a bit more detail. And specifically, what I'd like to look at is Disney. Disney in 2016 had the best of times. If you look at their opening in China, which was marvelously successful, and the worst of time, if you consider their alligator attack on a toddler in Florida and the subsequent public relations crisis based on the fact that they had inadequate signage warning the animals were in the water. So I'd like to take a look at what a SWOT analysis is, because as I said, it is very, very useful in terms of understanding where your business is and where you're going. So I want to point out one common misunderstanding is sometimes I see students kind of mixing up opportunities and threats in terms of what's internal, what's external. So I want to be very, very clear that strengths and weaknesses refer to facets that are internal to your business, whereas opportunities and threats refer to external factors. Now, specifically, strengths are anything that you are good at compared to your competition. You could think of it as your unique selling proposition or your competitive advantage. And it's important when you are brainstorming with the management team to look at it not only from your perspective, but also from the perspective of your customers. What do they deem to be a strength of your business? A weakness is also internal. Is there something that you are lacking in terms of skills or products? Is there something that, have you had a lot of problems or complaints in a certain area? Is there some area in which your competition is doing better? And just like the strengths, weakness could be at any point in the value chain. As I said, opportunities and threats are both elements in the external environment. So if you look at current trends, it could be demographic trends, it could be social trends, it could be political or social events. All of these could pose potential opportunities for your business. Conversely, threats may be similar in the sense that they could be posed by a political change, something that the competition is doing, some sort of public relations event, or some other type of difficulty. So let's look at Disney in a little bit more detail. I think we're used to, especially being in California, we're used to thinking of Disney in terms of Disneyland, but it's important to point out that Disney is so much more than that. It's actually a worldwide entertainment conglomerate. So I want to read you a little bit of detail on Disney just to kind of set the stage. This comes from Value Line, Disney, a short SWOT analysis by Ison Dalavagas, July 11th, 2016. The Walt Disney Company, founded in 1923 in Burbank, California, is a diversified worldwide entertainment company with operations in 5 business segments: media networks, parks and resorts, studio entertainment, consumer products, and interactive. The Media Networks group includes cable and broadcast television networks, production operations, distribution, domestic television stations including ESPN, the Disney Channel, and ABC Family, now known as Freeform as of January 2016, and radio networks and stations. The Parks and Resort segment is comprised of Walt Disney World in Florida, Disneyland Resort in California, Aulani in Hawaii, Disney Vacation Club, Disney Cruise Line, and Adventures by Disney. It also has an 81% ownership of Disneyland Paris, a 47% stake in Hong Kong Disneyland, and a 43% share of Shanghai Disney Resort. The Studio Entertainment Division produces and acquires live action and animated motion pictures, direct-to-video content, musical recordings, and live stage plays. It distributes its films largely through the Walt Disney Pictures, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and Touchstone banners. The consumer products segment works with licensees, publishers, and retailers to develop, promote, and sell a wide variety of products based on the company's intellectual property, film, and television properties. The Interactive Group creates branded entertainment and lifestyle content across interactive media platforms. As of October 3rd, 2015, the company employed roughly 185,000 people. End quote. As I said, I think that was important just to set the stage so that you understand the scope of businesses that Disney is involved in. And with that foundation, I think we can move into looking at some of the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats that Disney is facing. So in terms of strengths, the material that we just read gives you a really good idea of the level of diversification of Disney, and that is definitely one of their strengths. They don't have all of their eggs in one basket by any means. It's amazing how much they've grown since they started out as just an animation studio in the 1920s, and now they are, as we said, a massive media and entertainment conglomerate. And their diversification has been advantageous in that the parks alone grew 7% in 2015, and they've had a number of successes in other areas, notably with the Star Wars franchise. That should continue as they put out a new movie every year for the next 5 years, which they've said they would do. They've also done well in the consumer products, like the sneaker that we saw a moment ago. They have a very strong balance sheet and very good cash flow. Their financial strength is rated A++. They have very strong brand equity. They're known throughout the world, and they've been capitalizing on this to expand worldwide, and they have managed to maintain a very wholesome image. It's important to point that out because when we talk about threats, it remains to be seen if they'll continue to uphold that image. So going forward, let's look at weaknesses. One is the loss of subscribers at ESPN. As more and more consumers turn to other entertainment options, ESPN has lost quite a bit of money. Another is business volatility. The areas that Disney works in, namely entertainment, consumer products, travel, those vary a bit in terms of consumer tastes and preferences. However, I think their diversification helps out in that realm. In terms of opportunities, they have capitalized on the huge opportunity posed by the burgeoning middle class in China. And so, as I mentioned, 2016 was a very exciting year. They spent $5.5 billion on their investment in China. And just in the first few weeks, they could see that it was very, very successful. So they're planning further expansion in Asia. Another opportunity area is investment in new media partnerships. They're doing some work and having some success in the American-Canadian Digital Media Broadcasting Company. Looking at talks with Dish Network. And then, let's turn to threats. Because they are on so many fronts, they are dealing with competition in myriad realms. The picture that I gave you is Six Flags. So other resorts and recreation companies continue to pose threats. There are competition from cable and satellite services. If you think about Time Warner, that's a competitor of Disney, or Comcast. Think about web streaming companies like Netflix or Amazon. Those are all competitors. And then turning to the PR debacle, an alligator dragged a 2-year-old into the water in Florida on Disney's property. And that's problematic and sad enough, but it was worse because they had inadequate signage, and employees had mentioned that being an issue before. So it appears they were not sufficiently proactive in that realm. So this was kind of a brief overview of a SWOT analysis in Disney, which leads us very nicely into the discussion forum. Speaking of new opportunities and threats, I think it'd be really fun to take a look at Carnival Cruise Line, especially now that they are going into Cuba. So I would love to hear your thoughts on their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And in addition to the obvious issues surrounding Cuba, I'd love to hear where factors such as norovirus, environmental concerns, population ages, incomes and rising middle class, language barriers, crew safety, storms. I would love to hear where all of that fits in. So I'm very much looking forward to your comments.